Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Popcorner Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Among Us.
Oh yeah, that's what this movie
Um,
is. It is sus.
Among Us 1982 edition by John Carpenter. I
Wait,
can't.
the Michael Myers guy,
Yes.
the Fortnite guy.
Fortnite, what are you doing? Where is Michael Myers? All right. Let's start it strong. Who cares about the thing?
Yeah, the thing. Who cares?
Who cares? Who cares about, a new map? Nobody cares about. Where is Michael Myers? Tim Sweeney. I know where you live.
Do you? That's kind
No.
of weird.
But if I were Sniper Wolf, I would.
Get doxxed. We're
You came on a little strong there.
I'm sorry. We said so many like unfortunate things in the span of like a minute. That,
What are
like,
you gonna do?
If we like actually
Lay
mattered,
me off?
if we actually mattered in the YouTube space, we'd be getting like pitchforked right now by
No.
like 4 different
Are you
communities.
kidding me? What? Okay.
Here's the thing.
Uh,
We watched the thing. We watched the original, by the way. This is what we're talking about. We also started to watch the like prequel that was made in 2011, and then he's like, "All right, we're gonna open out." So we're just talking.
I wasn't feeling it.
We're just talking about the original, the thing.
Yes.
So here we are. I've never seen. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. You know what I'm saying? As a
Yeah.
horror fan like myself, there's some classics that I've never seen, and this is one of them.
Yep. So, okay. Well, I like to start with you.
Okay.
Your thoughts. You've never seen the movie. You're
No.
seeing it. Just your basic overall thoughts. You don't need to worry about me or anything. Just say what you got to say.
As soon as I say something, he's gonna be like, factually.
I mean, that's gonna happen throughout the course of this podcast.
Because you're cringe. So the thing, this movie, all I know about it is it was like a creature feature, and that's mainly because of things you've said, and I've seen some like gifs on Twitter of like, a random dude being like,
Practical effects. That's what this movie is
Yeah.
like. The number one thing for.
I will say that that part is what I was expecting, and I got a little less of what I thought I was getting. I think I would have loved to have seen more of the creature feature stuff. However, I will say that there was enough in here for me to be like, all right, good enough.
All right.
I would have loved to have seen more of that, but
So
we'll
would you have wanted something like stalking them?
I wouldn't. I like the concept of like the Among Us vibe, as we say in today's generation.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I like the idea of like, oh, some of these people are actually people and are being controlled by this thing. I like that idea. I
Yeah.
just wish that like I would have seen more of like the transformation stuff.
Right.
Like, I don't know. There's some characters that you don't see turn like that die. I would have loved to have seen more of that, I guess.
Well, fair, I guess.
I don't know. That's just the stuff that's really cool to me in this movie. Is that like
I
just
understand
seeing that stuff, especially for being as old as it is, it looks really good.
Yeah.
Like it looks gross. It looks really cool. I like it. Like the dog stuff in the beginning, I was like, oh god. I was like,
Yeah.
that's cool.
it's
So
it's there.
yeah, but yeah, I didn't actually expect to be like, oh, this person might actually not be a person. That stuff was new to me. I actually didn't know that's how that worked at all.
Yes.
So cool idea. We'll get more into it for me, but that's my thoughts on it.
Right.
What about you?
So this is my third time seeing the movie in my adult life in its entirety. How do I want to say this? I like the movie a lot.
Okay.
It's probably in my top 10, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a take, but a take.
It's a take. Well, but I've never seen this movie truly as a horror film. I've seen this movie like in the sense of like it's body horror. That it for sure is. But body horror doesn't work for me unless it's like people getting hurt. And that's really not what's going on. It's more of like a Resident
Yeah.
Evil style or like a Evil Within style like dysmorphic type
Mhm.
situation,
Yeah.
which doesn't really scare me. It just intrigues me from the sci-fi sense of like once again like the sci-fi is where it plays into me. It's like like it's this weird threat that's amalgamating all of these like the final form at the end where it's got the dog coming out of the chest
Yeah. It looks
and
cool.
like all that stuff like because it's just throwing out all the DNA that it knows,
knows.
and like that's just so cool to me. And I don't know, I just every time I watch this movie, I find something different I appreciate about it. Like this time around specifically, I was like, man, if I were out in like the setting was one of the things that I was like, I think the Antarctic setting is like perfect for the movie.
Oh, I
Like,
love the setting for sure.
you can't
Yeah.
go anywhere. If you try to go anywhere, you'll
Die
die.
from cold.
Yes.
Just freeze to death.
And then like hypothetically, there's no limit necessarily to how exactly cold the creature could survive in. So technically, it could be skulking around out there for some amount of time. Obviously, it'll eventually freeze anyway.
Yeah,
But
but it
we don't
doesn't
know.
die.
It can,
But it already
won't
confirms
die.
it doesn't die.
Right.
Like it'll just be found again later.
Right. So like the setting, like each time, like it's just every iteration of watching this movie, it's just everything becomes more like that was like a choice that was made.
It's more. It feels a lot more like confined. Like
Right,
they can't go
right,
anywhere. Like
right.
they have to deal with the situation.
Yes.
And like the storm brewing, so they're not really safe to fly, and even then it gets
Mm-hmm.
ruined. Like the helicopter, they can't
Mhm.
fly anyway, even if they could. So that stuff really keeps it in the ground of like, oh, we can't escape this. We have to either fight it head on or figure out what we're gonna do here.
Right.
So
No, I fully agree. My glasses are coming off for this. I have to think.
okay.
But no, like stuff like the setting, like every aspect of the movie, I realized that there was a choice at some point in making the movie, and to me, every time I'm like, oh, they made a choice. I always feel like they made the right one. Like, oh, where are we gonna set this? What's gonna be like? It's modern day, but it's in an isolated area. Great, love it. I don't know, just stuff like that. It's really cool. Like the sound design of like the creatures scream.
Yeah, that was
And,
really
like,
good too. Yeah.
there's parts of the body that like don't normally have vocal cords that are like making sounds, and it just sounds so non-human, obviously.
Mhm.
And I don't know, just I have a great appreciation for like a lot of those cues, and I thought that was really good. And the paranoia, I mean, every time I watch it, there's like a new thing I notice about how certain characters are acting. Obviously, knowing which ones are going to end up being,
Yeah, like
it's like,
yeah.
okay, like, were there parts that you could have picked up on it? Were there parts that like made it too obvious?
I mean, that's always the
And
best movies is the ones that you can like see things being planted throughout the
like Scream,
franchise. Yeah, like Scream.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like things that are being planted throughout this like franchise or movie or whatever if it's just a single movie. But like you watch it the first time, it goes over your head. But the second time, when you know the outcome, you can go back and pick up on little things that you're like, oh, okay, it kind of nodded toward this,
yeah.
towards that. That's the best way to
Mhm.
make a movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
So, okay, you've said, I don't want to say this. You've said that the creature thing was kind of just enough for you.
yeah,
Did you have like, was there a part of this as like a creature feature that worked really well, and then was there a part that completely failed to you? You know what I mean? Like, what worked and what didn't as far as that
mean-
like promise went for you?
I don't know. It's like I said, it's definitely the thing that didn't work for me is just the fact that I would have loved to have seen a lot more of it but I guess that's just because of my like thoughts going into the movie though. It's one of
That's
those
fair.
things where I thought the movie was solely focused on this like grotesque figure, like whatever coming at
Yeah,
you.
no, they actually
like-
kill like the creature most times that they come across it. It's just
Yeah.
then a new one pops up.
Pops up, yeah. And like the threat being of like, oh man, some people here are
who-
pretty sus.
right.
That aspect isn't something that was on my radar. So the aspect of like the feature creature stuff that wasn't it wasn't a hit to me because of the fact of I thought it was something else. I
Right.
thought that the whole movie was this, but it wasn't. And honestly though that's a negative for me that we didn't get as much as I thought we were gonna get, what we did get was good. It worked really well. It actually looked really good.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, I like the fact that we get to ask like the whole thing on oh, who's this? Who's that? Who's this? Who's that? What were you doing? What are you
Right.
doing? I actually think that brings a lot more to the table than just a creature walking around like, ooh, I'm gonna
Right.
get you. Which I like those type of movies. I mean, I'm a slasher fanatic, so my whole shtick is one thing coming after a group of people.
Right.
That's my type of movie. I love it. But something different. And not knowing anything about this movie, I definitely wasn't disappointed. Like, I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I will say that. Um,
One thing that before we get too far away from this point that I want to add before you continue was that with the the idea of who's doing what, who's who. There was one part of the movie where it almost feels like it could have turned into like a murder mystery of okay, we found this person dead, who's done it, you know what I mean?
mhm.
But I think the movie circumvents that in a way that because it's got a very limited cast as it is that it needs to kill off in very specific ways a lot of times after they turn into a monster.
Yeah.
And I think it circumvents that in a really interesting way of say for instance the blood packs.
Okay.
Like those got sabotaged or initially when McCready he finds his jacket ripped up, which he
Yeah.
is the one that finds it and hides it.
Mhm.
He actually did get caught in the act of doing that, but somebody did initially try to, frame him by throwing it out there in the
Yeah.
snow.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure which one would have done that in that instance, but stuff like that is there's layers to it, and there's definitely points where they try to um subvert the expectations of the audience because I don't know if watching it how early you picked up that McCready was kind of the main character.
Like
But
the guy that
the
had,
hair,
yeah,
you
the
know what I
long
mean?
hair and
The-
stuff.
The guy that made it to the end.
I kind of knew that pretty
And-
early on. I feel like he was kind of set in stone to be the main character pretty early on.
Right. I mean,
To me, anyway.
he's a John Carpenter classic because he also did what is it, Escape from New York or whatever.
Oh yeah,
He was the main.
I am excited though, or I mean, based on the ending, but I am jacked that Keith David was the one that was with him. Keith David, the legend.
I know.
Keith
I
David is a
mean,
god, dude.
Classic.
What a legend.
I mean, they both made it to the end. They didn't live, but we didn't see him die. But so, well, let's tackle that right here, right now.
Okay.
We kind of briefly talked about it. I kind of explained the fandom's thoughts. What do you think happened at the end?
What
Do
I
you,
think
do
happened
you
at the
think
end?
either? Let me lay it out for you. Do you think either McCready was infected or
Okay.
whatever? I mean, he wasn't. He clearly wasn't full blown. Even if he was infected in that final fight at some point, I don't think he would have lost his mind yet. But he
Yeah,
could have
yeah,
been a
yeah.
carrier.
Yeah.
Do we think that?
Keith David?
Yes. His child. Do we think that he was, a mimic by that point? Or do we believe that they had wiped out the infestation?
I personally believe they just killed him.
You
Killed
think-
it. I think they were both just normal. They were both themselves. However, I think if I were to sway towards someone being infected, I would have went the main guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what Keith David played, his character, I think he was just a normal dude. I think he stayed chill. I think the main character would have gotten hurt or scraped or something in that fight at the end there, or something happened there
Yeah.
where he would have gotten infected and then slowly turned into it. I think the Keith David's character, I think that he was normal. I personally think that both of them were normal though. I think they just froze to death.
Yeah, I think so too.
Why do you think there wasn't a sequel?
Well, technically.
I'm just telling you. That's-
Technically.
No. Nope, that was a prequel. No sequel, and that's why.
No, I mean the game. There was technically that game, which I want to before you leave tonight. I want to make sure that we look that up.
Like a
I want to see
trailer or something.
I want to see what that's about. I mean, we won't do it on the podcast, but this is actually a pretty interesting or pretty nice little point to talk about that. There are 2 indie games coming out that are kind of in my sphere that are I don't want to say heavily inspired by the thing, but one of them for sure is it's full blown Arctic Station. I don't know so much if it's about a whodunit type thing.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere and the setting are very similar, and actually, it's going to be it's going to be composed by Cicada Sirens, the guy that I'm going to be talking to, that did Signalis.
Oh, okay.
So he's doing the soundtrack for that.
That's
And,
cool.
that was actually just announced a couple days ago, so that's really cool. And I'm excited for that game. Anytime the developer tweets about it, I'm like, oh, please, it's so cool, it's so cool. I want to play it. And then
The fanboy.
the fanboy, and then the other one, it's called Retrospace, which it's kind of like BioShock, and it's like an immersive sim type situation, but BioShock on a greater level, and it's on a space station, kind of that 70s vibe, which that's not really fitting in with the thing too much. But there's an enemy in the game that I don't know if it's just if the enemies lose their head, but it sprouts the legs and starts walking like the head will.
Hmm.
So I'm just like, there you go. I mean, mo- movies inspire shit, dude. I think it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
cool, like stuff like that, and like those are just two very recent examples of games that haven't even came out yet.
I mean,
You
it
can
makes
imagine, like Resident Evil. I almost guarantee Resident Evil was inspired by
Yeah.
like the thing.
Well,
Like
I mean-
it has to be.
people who create things in media are just creating things because of their love and passion for past previous
Right,
things.
right. And
So a lot of stuff is based on something.
let's get deep for a minute.
Okay. Deep.
Do you think there? I'm not even talking about AI. Do you think there's a point in human civilization where there is no originality only because all the ideas are taken?
I mean,
To some degree. I mean, obviously there's going to be like variations, but everyone's going to say, "Oh, it's just
this game or this movie.
it's
or
just
this
this version
yeah.
of this."
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like we're kind of getting to that point
Like-
already. Honestly.
Like the next time there's some, magic wielding show or something, someone's going to say, "Oh, it's just the American version of Harry Potter." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel
I'll
like
sip my tea with my crumpets.
though there's so much content out there, I feel like that's kind of what it is now. Like anytime anyone
Right.
has an idea, like I said, everyone's always referencing something, or they grew up with stuff, or they have interest too. Creators have interest,
Right.
so like obviously there's going to be some inspirations there. I mean, with that in mind, it will probably remind you of some past project, and you're like, oh, it's like this, or is inspired by this.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're already in that era where things are starting to be said like that. A game comes out or a movie comes out, people are like, "Oh, it's like this, but something's altered."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, it's this, but a little turn tilted to be a little different."
Yeah.
But I don't see that as a bad thing because everyone has a lot of the same ideas, but people can twist and turn and do things with it differently, and that creates a whole new story. Okay, like Harry Potter, for instance. Who's to say someone doesn't come in and just make a different story with magic and
I
a
mean-
magic school, like
Here's the thing. There are people that say that Harry Potter is just Star Wars.
as a thing?
Yes.
Huh, I
It's
didn't
just Star Wars, but you changed out the lightsabers for wands.
Wands?
Because you've got what is it? It's like there's an orphan kid who is like incredibly adept at these magical powers, and they're the chosen one who is meant to take down this great evil and overthrow this. There's more to it than that, but like that was the main gist of it, and I was just like, God damn, it's right. I mean, but that's the thing. If you generalize anything, it's gonna be like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I can say like, man, Donald Trump and Obama, they were kind of the same guy. They were both presidents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
For
mean, I
real.
just look at projects and stuff as their own thing. I don't. I mean, if
Yeah.
like there's like a really, really like close, like a nod to where like it was made there to be a nod or something
Right.
towards something, I'll catch it and I'll be like, ah, cool.
Like you can tell that new King Kong game is like a Dark Souls inspired.
After that, you know what? The thing should have made it. The thing should have made it to the real world population
So
and
I
killed
could
us
have
all.
died.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have to witness the Kong game.
Yeah.
Do you think if the thing made it to current population, do you think we'd live?
No.
You don't think so?
Why would we?
Well, think about it. Maybe we start up some camps, and then you have to do the blood test,
Okay.
and then they can let you in based on if you're infected or not. I mean, it'd be an easy way to like figure out what's infected, what's
I don't
not.
trust. Okay. Here's the problem with that. I don't trust society enough to set up something fast enough
Yeah,
to catch most of the population. Then once most of the population is overtaken,
but
it's just gonna go sicko mode and kill everybody. Like I really much think that it's gonna be like if this were to get out, right?
Yeah.
I think exactly what would happen is it would infest exactly 51% of the
then
population,
start attacking everyone.
and then just attack.
yeah.
Like as soon as it's got numbers, I think that's what it would do.
I think that's a pretty good nod to the movie itself when he's just like, well, clearly not all of you are infected because you all would just
That's-
kill me. So
In watching this movie, that I think that's my favorite scene of this movie. Like my favorite line at least, because he's sitting there and
they're all like on the side, like looking at him.
he's got all the power, he's got the flamethrower, and like everyone's in like the lineup, and
Yeah.
they still don't know too much at this point, and I don't know, just something like the camera lines up. It's kind of with McCready's perspective, and he's just like, well, clearly not all of you are, or else you would attack me right now. So there's at least some of you that haven't turned. So, and like that was just like, to me, that's just like, from his perspective in that moment, I think that's very terrifying.
Yeah.
But then it's like invigorating, like the way, like, man, we got to figure this out.
Figure it out, or
It's
we're all screwed.
Yes.
Well, I really like the my scene is still the one with the blood, like figuring out who is infected, who's not. That's definitely my favorite.
That's the scene that, like, I told you I watched it as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it as a kid, and that was the scene that stuck with me. That, and then Dad dying.
Yeah, that scene is definitely my favorite because, they actually have an idea on how to figure this thing out. They put it into action. You
Right.
see the creature feature stuff come out. You see, like, there's a lot of tension on, like, who's who's,
Right.
Yeah,
There were
they
some
just-
fake outs.
They just slowly, like, do the thing, and then,
Mhm.
some people were kind of reacting a little bit, like, they're like, oh, God. And then,
Well, because some of them might not have even
No.
known.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So they were like,
but,
everybody's nervous.
and then also before any of that happens, literally the main dude, whatever his name is,
McCready.
yeah, literally just straight up shoots that guy with the dogs.
Well,
He wasn't even infected because they test his blood too. And
Well, he was gonna stab him.
I know, but it's just you didn't
Yeah.
have to shoot him in the head. But it's just so funny
Yeah.
because they're all like, "Well, you're just a murderer then," because they test his blood and he didn't like
Right.
turn into the thing. So.
It was just which is crazy. I mean, stuff like that. It's cool. I mean, the movie kind of covers it all. There's like the character that's killed off screen. That's like the motivation. There's the characters that are bad. There's the characters that get killed prematurely. And
premature. Surprised you didn't say that.
I know. And like, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for this movie. I know you were talking about how slow this movie was. But
At first, it was I was getting kind of sleepy at first.
honestly, like,
It's not that it was slow. I don't know. Like the build up for it was honestly like it did what it needed to do. I don't think it took too long on the premise. I think it just came down to the expectations I had. I thought
That's
we'd
fair.
be getting into the creature feature stuff early on, and it would have just been like the whole movie.
I get
But
that.
that's not what it was. I think once we got to the point where the dog turns into the thing, and then they're starting to like figure out, oh, people are infected. Like that's when I was like, okay, cool.
Right.
But the build up to that, I'm like, why are we chasing this dog? Which I mean, it makes sense because you brought it up because I didn't even catch it. You're like, oh, they knew that was the thing, so they were
Right.
trying to kill it,
yeah.
which they didn't try very hard.
No, for real. Yeah. What did you Yeah, he was not doing too hot. What did you think of like the transformations and all of the physical, like, non CG, like, stuff in it? What's the word I'm looking for? You gotta help me here, man. I don't know. I'm blanking. They're practical. Like, all
Like
of their stuff was practical. It wasn't like CG or anything.
Oh,
So, like, and I remember that I think I read somewhere that they used like bubble gum and like different stuff like that for some of the skin.
Really?
Like dyed bubble gum.
that's kind of cool.
So like when the head was tearing away and it was like tearing the skin and stuff like that, and I was just like, man, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was
and-
gonna say that's actually really neat, especially since it like looked really good for what it was.
Right. There was one scene that actually gave me like a flashback. There was one part, it was for one of the human transformations where like these bulbs pop out and they're like white, but then blood starts running down them.
Yeah.
And it looked exactly like Raiders of the Lost Ark when the guy's face melts. I'm like, oh my god, I know where that's from. And,
Inspiration.
right. Well,
It's a carbon copy of Indiana Jones now,
when did Indy come
or
out?
did Indy copy it?
I think Indy came out like was Indiana Jones the year before, 81.
I don't know.
It
You're
does-
you're the Indy guy, not me.
It don't matter. You know what I mean? It don't matter. So, with that being said, I really like this movie. I like the build up personally. It's more of, I think, since I guess this goes to what you're saying. I knew what to expect, and I also knew what I was looking for. I thought the beginning was like, it's like the, he doesn't know, he knows, face, and yeah, man, I have a lot of appreciation for this movie. I think it's really well done. I think it hits paranoia just right, and I think it hits all of the personality types just right. I think the like the characterizations of the characters, that's the most redundant sentence I've ever used. But I think the characterizations are really good. You've got like the characters that you can tell they don't want to put in as much work as everybody else. You've got the really anxious off the bat characters, the stoic, protagonists basically. And there's just a big clash at that one point in the movie, and I think it works really well.
Hmm.
So I don't know, but do you have any major gripes or even positives? I guess you want to bring up.
I mean, it's kind of hard for me because, like I said, I think I do like this movie a lot more than I thought I would. I thought I'd go into here and be like, it's gonna be a creature feature. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah,
Like, it's not gonna be anything crazy. But the added, added part of the layer there of a cake being the whodunit scenario ordeal. Like, I really like that addition to the movie of a thing I didn't think was gonna happen.
yeah,
So like
yeah.
that made me like it a lot more. Like I said, the build up was definitely slow, but I think it's because of the fact it's not what I was expecting. So like a lot of the stuff that was done pretty well. I didn't really care about any of the characters. I think
That's
that
fair.
could have been better. I think like making me at least care about the main character a little bit more would have been nice or something. I don't know. The characters for me just didn't click. But at the end of the day, we're just watching them try to not die and figure this thing out. So
Right.
I'm not watching like a romance movie. But I would have loved to at least had a character that I was rooting for. This movie for me was like, if they die, I don't really care. So that's a negative for me. But they weren't bad. Like the actors did a really good job. Everyone acted really well. And when they had to be the thing acted really cool and was pretty
Right.
spoopy for what it was.
There was a character in the movie at one point. You said, "Man, he looks really familiar. I don't know what he's from," and I don't know him from anything else, but his face is so like popular as far as like when you look up the
He
thing, he is the like
the lead. Like not the
no no
lead,
no
but
no
like
like
the poster dude, basically, like what people like pick.
no like his head was the one that sprouted the legs.
Yeah.
So and like the really grotesque up in the operating room, like you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And not saying that it looked exactly like the normal actor's face because it didn't, but like very similar. And I was almost wondering because you said you'd seen a few like pictures or something of the movie before or something or
Yeah.
like screen grabs. I'm like, I wonder because like if there's anything you would have seen of this movie, like I
It would
have
have
to
been that.
imagine it's that GIF. So I'm like, I wonder if maybe grotesquely speaking, you've seen the same guy before, but yeah, fleeting thoughts of a
Hmm.
madman.
I don't
Man.
know. To me, like, spiked me down. I know it's not him, but like, to me, like his face when I saw him for the first time when I said that, I was like, this guy making me think of freaking Drake and Josh's freaking father, dude. It really looked like his dad from
Which one are you talking about? Are you
like
talking about the doctor or not the doctor guy, but the
the Walter guy, the actual dad, and Drake and Josh.
buddy? I don't know.
It looks like him a lot. And I don't think it's actually him. And if I saw a picture of Walter right now, it probably wouldn't even remotely look like him. But like that's what
I
I
gotta
thought
fact
of.
check this.
That's what it looked like to me, dude. Like a younger version of
Walter
him.
Ray and
It looked like him, like a younger version of him. Like it really kind of does. I'm be real honest.
a younger version.
A younger version of him. You don't think so? It's
Bro-
not him, but like
Brother, you had this guy aging backwards. All right.
you don't agree.
No, I don't.
I mean, the facial features are there.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess you're fair there. One thing I want to say before we go into like final verdicts, because I don't think there's a reason to go crazy long if you don't have any other.
Like I said, I just think this movie was pretty simplistic. Like for me, I don't have that many nitpicks because honestly, there wasn't anything wrong with it. Like my negatives would be just that I didn't expect what I saw. To the things that I've picked on already, or just because it wasn't what I expected. Like I said,
Right.
I think that what it was though, I actually liked it a little bit more. But I don't think it's like a movie I would put anywhere near my top movies. Like it was a good movie, but I don't know if I'm gonna watch it ever again. Be
That's
real,
fair.
I don't know. I
I've
don't.
watched it. I watched it 3 years in a row now, so
I mean, yeah, like it's a
I'm
good movie.
unintentionally so, but like, yeah.
I just think that like I don't know. It's just not really like my
I
type
no,
movie, you
I
know?
understand. It's definitely scratching an itch that doesn't strike me as the one that you have.
Yeah.
But for me, I just think that the blending of, you've got the like the almost cosmic body horror
Yeah.
with the paranoia, I think is really strong. And I don't know, man. And then like you kind of walk away. To me, like I almost always look at a movie and like I think to myself, like if I think it's a really good movie, I'm like, what is the message here?
Mhm.
Like, do you know what I mean? Do you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? Like, if this is a really good movie and it's worth like the value I put to it, like, what is the greater message that I should take away? And I was thinking, I was like, actually, this is a pretty easy one for me, and everything is of course open to interpretation. But to me, this is like, people are definitely stronger together.
Yeah.
I think, and I think as soon as the isolation and like that paranoia kicks in,
That's when that all goes
it's
downhill.
over.
Yeah. I would
You know,
say.
in any scenario in life, I think that's true. And on a very reduced but yet grander scale here in the scenario of life and death, I think that just hits right. And I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and throw out my final verdict.
Go for it, man.
For every reason I said, I think the practical effects. I don't know how you could say that they would age any worse or better. I mean, I think they just, if somebody did practical effects today, I think it would look just as good as it did then.
I was gonna say for as old as it is, it looks
Right.
really
It
good.
looked really good. I thought a lot of the ways they did it were smart. Uh, the creature designs were actually pretty grotesque.
Mhm.
There's a couple times I wish I would have gotten a wider shot of it, and I like the pacing of the movie. I like the slow rollout and layering of like, you know, we got to figure out that it seems like a new question is being introduced every couple minutes that they have to find an answer to, and I think it's at a pretty quick pace. The only parts I really didn't like were when they had to like go to the spaceship. Or like the second time they left. I didn't really
Didn't really need it.
no point.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was necessary. Quite frankly, I didn't think
I
we even needed to
the
see a
space.
spaceship in general.
We easily could have just went with it was frozen and then
Right. I would have
yeah.
been fine with learning it was some primordial
Yeah, just frozen
creature.
in the Antarctic
Right,
for
yeah.
all these years. Yeah.
Either way would have been fine with me, but I think it is based off of a book, at least some bastardized version of it, and it's called like The Thing from Space or something like that.
Okay.
So
They just took the inspiration there and nod
Yes.
towards it. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's what's going on there. I'm not entirely sure. My mom tried to tell me about it sometimes. But very tiny gripe in a large scheme of things. The only thing I will say is that I don't know. In a modern lens, I think that it could have definitely been leveraged to be scarier. Because I think with the cosmic, almost body horror and that paranoia, I think there could have been room for more tension.
Yeah.
And I think there is tension, especially if you're watching this movie like alone. Like you had the negative disposition of watching it with an almost 2-year-old running around talking about this or that and a baby in a bath and a towel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you would have watched it, silence, whatever, as is, I think you would have pulled a little more from it. And I have before, so I'm saying this kind of off the cuff, but like, I think tone could have been struck just a little bit better. And I'm an 8.5.
Dang, that's pretty
I
high. Dude.
am. Like, I think visuals age just perfectly fine. I think pacing, great. I think everything about this movie is great. There's nothing that I would change. I would simply hope to add, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
It's not what's there that's wrong. It's what I would
what you would want from it.
So
more from it.
that to me is what's missing that last 1.5,
Okay.
in my opinion. And I would almost argue I would take a 9. If you told me it was a 9, I wouldn't disagree. But I'm right now when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking 8.5.
Well, I will confirm to you, I'm not hitting it with 9. So
Okay.
sorry.
All right, man. All right.
Man.
We can take that. We'll take that.
Yeah, we take it. So again, as you stated, there was kind of a 2-year-old.
Mhm.
I was kind of like messing, playing with her, hanging with her a little bit while also watching the movie. So I was kind of like, back and forth there.
Yeah.
Didn't want to leave the baby hanging. But
Let's go.
you know, even though I was doing that, I did get a lot of the movie. I was paying attention, and especially when stuff got real serious.
Right.
I actually don't think there's that much tension, but again, that could be part with. I think the most tensive thing was probably when he's checking all the blood, and like you're like looking between the characters.
Yeah.
You're like, oh god, who's who, who's what. Like that part was tense. I think the tension could have been better, so I'm there with you. That you probably think there's more than I do because you were paying attention.
I mean, I think a lot of it, and I think the only reason this works so well is because I think John Carpenter does a really good job of putting you in the role of the protagonist in a weird enough kind of way where the protagonist doesn't always have the most personality.
Well, it's funny too because like even though he's our main character, he's not even in it most of the time.
Right.
I feel like that's a good way of like, you kind of just being there, and then when he comes in, like your reactions or what you're thinking is what he's kind of doing.
Right.
So then you're like, oh, I'm this guy. This
Right.
is what. Yeah,
Yes.
I think he does a good job at doing that
So
too.
I think, and whether it be Laurie Strode or whoever, you kind of find your anchor point in his movies of like, okay, this is kind of where I have to base my state of mind around.
Yeah.
And I guess with that, like, I had a really easy time kind of putting myself into that mindset. And I'm thinking, like, okay, if I'm standing around a fire with a flamethrower, not knowing who any of these 10 people standing in front of me
You're burning all
want
of
to
them.
kill me right now.
You're burning all of them.
In that situation,
No, I say.
definitely. So I guess in that state of mind, it's not always like, oh man, it's cutting back and forth between a monster walking down a hallway and a guy trying to unlock a door. Not that kind of tension. But I don't know if that makes sense.
Good old Mike.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel John Carpenter's directing does a really good job in this scenario here.
Yeah.
I think. So,
Okay.
but not to derail you any further.
Like I say, I think John Carpenter's legendary. Like I say, I love the Halloween franchise for the most part.
He should make a Dead Space movie.
So with that in mind, the thing being, directed by him, I was like, I'm in for a treat. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not something that I'm going to be super into, I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
Right.
Which is where I'm at. This isn't really my type of movie. As I've stated, I'm more into the slashery stuff. I'm more into the fast pace. Like that's just what I'm into, the slasher type. And this isn't what this is. However, I think this movie is pretty good, and what it does do is pretty good. I think the creature feature stuff's really good. It looks amazing. Like the actual like physical appearance of what all the mutations look like was a lot better than I thought it was gonna be, and it threw me off guard a bit. I'm like, oh god, this looks kind of cool.
He says,
No, I was like, this looks super cool, man. And with that being said, my negatives are solely on the characters. I didn't really care about any of them. I mean, I love Keith David, so I was there for my man. But he was probably the only one I liked. But that's just because Keith David and his voice is so good.
that's fair.
So the characters themselves I didn't really care about, but I did like the whodunit scenario. I think I just watched Bodies, 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 and that is a whodunit movie. Don't watch that movie. Watch The Thing. The Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is bad. Bad.
Man, hearing you talk about like characters being one of the weaker parts in this movie, which if I had to give anything, I mean, I would say that I didn't care what happened to most of them, but I like the difference of the personality.
Yeah, I think them clashing in the way that they act and the way that their personalities are and the way they clash with each other is great. I think
Yeah.
they did a good job at that. I just didn't think there was enough personality for me to be like, oh, this person's really funny, this person's really cool. It was more so just like, okay, their characters, there's a little different in the way they want to approach the scenario,
Mhm.
and then that was it.
Yeah,
It wasn't like, I don't know, we've watched a lot of movies recently where like
You're
a
gonna-
lot of characters that are in the movies, I'm like, oh, I love this guy, I love this girl, man.
you're gonna love Aliens. I promise you.
We'll see.
It like characters to the max.
Mr. Oh, it'll dethrone Sydney for you. I doubt it.
I don't know, man.
It's not.
I'm sorry. It probably won't ever because of nostalgia alone. But I did see a poll recently where it's like Sarah Connor from Terminator versus Ripley from Aliens or Alien or whatever you want to say, the franchise. And man, I had to give it to Sarah Connor. Like if we're talking straight up brute force,
Like survivability, like who would win in a fight.
Sarah Connor will
Connor, yeah.
literally rip your throat out, shove it up your ass, and make you talk through it.
Yeah, Sarah Connor.
She is crazy.
She's
She's
insane.
fucking mommy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm just saying.
The Thing, though.
The Thing.
I'll get
The
to
thing
my
is-
I'll get to my final verdict here. You rated it pretty high. It is definitely a, like you said, top 10 for you.
Yeah.
This is not my type of movie, so this being lower is definitely not a bad thing.
It's a 4.
No, I actually think this movie is pretty solid. Like I said, I don't think I'll ever really watch it again. Maybe in the future, in like 10 years, I'll be like, oh, let's give it a rewatch.
Yeah.
Maybe actually get a full, like, no baby talking to me as I'm watching it, you know? Get the
Just a-
full
Just
experience.
an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
By then, she'll maybe leave me alone.
You'll at least understand what she's saying entirely. Hopefully.
But with that in mind, I think I'm gonna rate it a 7.
Okay. I'll take it.
I was gonna say, I think it's a pretty good movie, pretty solid. I think it's probably a lot of people's favorites. It seems like a pretty cult classic movie, especially made by John himself. I think I do prefer the Halloween franchise. That is more my alley of slasher-esque movies. So I'm gonna sway more towards that franchise over The Thing. But you know,
I respect
two
it.
swings there. I like both of them. So
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's 2 for 2. One thing I do want to bring up as far as Halloween goes, since we're on the subject,
go for it.
we've talked recently,
Oh god.
you and I, about how we're going to watch the Halloween trilogy, the new Halloween trilogy, and finish with Halloween Ends
Halloween ends, boy.
for a podcast. What I'm suggesting, because
Okay.
John Carpenter is so great, is we watch the original Halloween instead.
I would prefer that.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna get just my quick takes here. I don't know if we'll ever actually watch them for a review, but since we're doing the original,
Yeah.
I will hit you with 2018 Halloween, the like one that came out that was after the first one, like
Yeah.
the whatever reboot of the franchise. That movie, god tier. I actually love the 2018 one. Halloween Kills. You watched. You didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
I thought it was fine. I think it was a downgrade from 2018, but I still liked it. Halloween Ends.
Evil Dies tonight.
Halloween Ends. He never watched.
I haven't seen it.
I actually have, unfortunately. Corey. Woo. Corey Ends. Michael who?
Michael,
I can't.
Michael motherfucking Myers, bitch.
Yeah, he gets beat by a kid who looks like me.
That's embarrassing.
It is
That's
embarrassing.
Um,
Yeah, I would think I would like to watch the original.
Okay. Sounds good.
That'd
We'll
be,
do
it's
that.
been a while for me, so.
All right. Well, it's spooky month, so with that being said,
I-
we're gonna
We were also kind of just talking about watching Evil Dead 2013.
yes. So I was
Because
gonna
that's
say,
one we haven't watched either.
if all goes to plan, we'll probably watch that next, and then we'll probably do
Halloween for Halloween. Yeah.
So
That works, man.
that we'll have to do that as that, and check out some of the other ones. We did Totally Killer most recently, new movie from Amazon.
Yeah.
Recording
Recording was kind of whack, but
Yeah, it turned out okay.
Did it?
End of the day, I mean, it wasn't bad. Not as good as this one, probably, hopefully. But we're just hanging out. If you like it, consider subscribing. If you don't like it,
tell us
Consider
how bad.
subscribing.
Yeah, tell us how bad we are, dude. Subscribe to us just to trash talk us.
specifically talk about everyone on the right side of the screen right now. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Woo-hoo.
Goodbye.
Later.
We gotta find them. We gotta find.